makes a person of interest. Coach Michael Burt cuts to the chase, interviewing some of the biggest names in the world. How do they think? What makes them tick? What are their thought processes? And how they became a person of interest.
Hey there, this is Coach Michael Burt, the Super Coach. Every single month, I like to do a podcast called Person of Interest. As many of you know, I wrote a book many years ago called Person of Interest, which prompted me to really study the ingredients of people of interest. What do they do? What's their background? What makes them into people of interest in the world? And then I like interviewing those people to see kind of what is the makeup of them? Why do they think the way they do? How do they do what they do every single day? And so today I've actually got two people of interest that are out of Texas, and they have been clients of mine that I've really, really enjoyed working with. Monica Foster and Chris Dean, or Chris Foster.
That's better.
and I'm going to brace you for this one, folks, because Monica is a fireball, and I like that. I like that about her. So Chris and Monica, welcome to Person of Interest. Good to see you today, and excited about having you.
Thank you for having us.
All right. So lots of people watch this show. We've had a lot of great people on this show, and it's been really interesting to me because when I wrote Person of Interest, I was basically saying this, the whole objective was to become known for something, right? The whole objective is to be the buyer versus the seller. The whole objective of Person of Interest is to stand out in a very crowded space. So you guys are outside of Houston, Texas, right? What city specifically are you in?
League City.
All right. And that would be how far outside of Houston, Texas, just to give some context?
About 22 miles.
Right. And getting anywhere in Houston is typically 22 miles actually equals what? About an hour and a half?
About an hour. Depends on traffic.
All right. So Monica, I'm going to start with you. When did you make a simple decision to get into real estate?
Well, that's not such a simple answer, but I will answer it. So this goes way back when I was in high school. A senior in high school, I knew I wanted to do one of two things. I wanted to either be a real estate agent or I wanted to go into accounting. And so when I graduated, the real estate market was not doing well. It was in the very, very, very early 90s. In fact, 1990. So the market was not good. And so I ended up going the accounting route, but I later came full circle, and here I am in the real estate world.
Nice. But, well, it seems like those two things would be very different, though. Like taking the accounting route and becoming a real estate agent would seem like not divergent paths. But what did you learn? Because I'm sure taking the accounting route, that you learned something that maybe could help you today as a real estate professional.
I think it just helped me with numbers and understanding of numbers, and in between my accounting jobs that I had. I actually did a 1-year stint selling industrial chemicals, which kind of was my segue into the sales world because I had never experienced that world before.
Nice. So the accountant, for all those real estate agents out there trying to take the real estate exam, when they throw those national questions on there about percentages and numbers and how much the mortgage cost, if this down, are you really good with numbers that way?
I am good with numbers as long as a calculator is involved.
Well, but understanding the formula, this is very valuable. This is a very valuable skill because, when you look at people of interest, most of them have some type of unique background. They had some type of unique experience. They had some type of unique mentors. They had something that made them unique or give them some type of competitive advantage in the marketplace. So where did your drive come from? Because we call it prey drive. One of the characteristics of people of interest is they got a big engine, and they got a big engine to go get it every day. And it's very uncommon. They have an uncommon engine. Where did that engine come from in you?
Well, and this kind of goes back to part of my story as well. So I think for me, it stems from, and this is later on in my accounting career, I spent 7 years in the corporate accounting world, and I ended up getting laid off from my job. This is when around the same time as the WorldCom and Enron scandals. I ended up getting laid off from that job. And 5 days later, my then husband actually left me. And so he took all the money out of our bank accounts left me with nothing except a mortgage that I couldn't pay and 2 children that I had to feed and clothe, and they were not his children. So it wasn't like I was getting child support from him for them. So when Chris and I met, I guess a couple of years later or a year and a half later, and then I ultimately got back into real estate, I knew that I never wanted to be as destitute as I was in that moment. It is a very hard place to hit rock bottom, but when you do, you know, you never want to go back.
Yeah. Interesting, because we were talking before we started the show, and Monica's not a country music lover, and I'm in Nashville going to a country concert, but it sounds like your story would make for a heck of a country music song.
Can I be honest with you? That's why I don't like country music.
Okay, there, see,
my ex-husband loved it.
Okay, all right. See, we're getting somewhere here. But see, this is really interesting, because I think that really probably activated your prey drive in some way, right? Like you made a big decision there that you were never going to be probably reliant on other people, and you were going to go out and create a life that you wanted. And
Absolutely.
do you think you would have if things would have turned out differently? Do you think it took that moment for you to come to that decision, to really to activate that grit? It was probably already there, but did that moment really catapult you to a whole new level of thinking?
It did, because if you've ever been so broke that, and Chris loves my stories before I met him, he loves to tell people, oh, Monica used to take ketchup packets from the Sonic or Burger King and squeeze them into her own ketchup bottle. That is a 100% true story. I barely had money to clothe and feed my children. My children's dad, which is my first husband, I only got $186 a month in child support for 2 kids. Yeah. And that was nothing. Even back in the early 90s, that was nothing. So I literally was robbing Peter to pay Paul just to keep food on the table for them. For myself, it didn't matter. I could eat whatever, but for them, I had to give them something. And so it's just a decision that you have to make. Like, okay, I've got to break out of this. And what am I going to do to get there?
Right. Well, this is good. See, now we're going into the backstory of where that decision is. People of interest have very strong knowledge, very impeccable skill, very big prey drive, and a lot of confidence. Those are 4 characteristics of all people of interest. Okay. So Chris, you guys work together in the real estate business, right? And each of you have complementary skills.
Correct.
Okay. And so Monica goes out and gets the deals, right? Gets the listings, goes out and hustles and becomes known in the marketplace. And you, what do you do?
Well, I sit back and just count the funds. No, I'm just kidding.
This is a good deal if it's true.
Yeah. Actually, I do that. It's ironic because she has an accounting degree, but I do the accounting and the bookkeeping. But it works out well because basically I do everything that she doesn't do. And it wasn't always that way. I mean, and one thing she forgot to mention is she got into real estate because she wanted to do tax liens. We thought that would be a good way to kind of get into it. It turned out not to be the case, but because she was already in it and I ended up moving to Houston to go take a job at NASA, she came with me a year later and started over in 2008. So you want to talk about prey drive and all that. She didn't know a soul and had to really bootstrap herself. In those early days, I wasn't doing as much. I mean, being a computer engineer, I kind of helped with the website a little bit. And coming from Dallas, we had to do a lot ourselves that, here in Houston, you didn't have to do. But over time, as the business continued to grow, I mean, within 8 years, we were number 1 in our area. And I had taken on more and more and more tasks. We formed a team in 2012, 2013, something like that. Something like that. I know when the LLC was formed, but as we got more agents going, I started implementing processes. We had to have all those things that a business would need to function properly, not just leadership, obviously, but the systems, procedures, processes you need to make sure everything's done right and the customer's happy and taken care of. And then automation too, which came later, which is kind of my area. So the time I retired from NASA in 2018, I was at that time carrying 2 laptops around everywhere I went, and it just got to be too much. And we kind of took this was the first time we never had a W-2 job really, to help offset the risks of being self-employed, right? So that was kind of a little leap for us. We felt like that time the business was in a good place, and we felt we could really take it to the next level at that time. And so that's what we did. And so I run the agents, I do the books, I do the automation. I've been delegating more and more now as we get bigger, but that's kind of where we are. I mean, we had some things happen, which I'm sure you'll get to in a couple of years after that were big. And so when we get to those, I can address those. But
did you say though that you quit your job? Because I don't think you mentioned that. You just talked about forming the team.
Well,
so
I
left his job.
Yeah, I left it in 2018 when I kind of retired from there, and just gave up a 6-figure W-2 job to run and do everything for the team that, she needed. Because the thing is she works in the business and I work on it. And that's one thing that's very difficult for one person to do both.
Yep.
And so that's why we're complementary, because she is out hustling, running. She does some buyers too. She's doing the listings. She's now helping everybody on the team with her knowledge. She's helping everybody in our group, our collaboration group, with her knowledge. I mean, being a broker, they ask her all sorts of questions. And, with our team doing so many deals, she's seeing pretty much everything. So she can advise them on pretty much everything. I don't know how many deals now. I mean, we did 500 last year. I think we're in the thousands now total.
Probably upwards of 3,000.
Yeah, and since we started, so it's a lot. So
where at what point did you guys say? Because most real estate agents don't treat the business like a business, right? Like an organization. They treat themselves as realtors, right? And they go out and they get a deal and they get a commission. They go get another deal and they get a commission. But you guys made a decision. We're going to run a business. Mm-hmm. We're going to run an organization, right? When did that start? In the beginning, or did something happen and you go, hey, we need to? Because think about most real estate agents out there. They don't have a business mind. They don't think of it like a business. They don't run it like a business. And so where did that start?
I think that, in my opinion, Chris could have a different opinion, but I think from my perspective, that started shortly before we started the team. Because when you start getting to a certain level of production, like Chris mentioned, you have to have a lot of systems in place in order to manage that. And I like to tell people that I told myself when I was still an individual, I told myself that if I reached 75 deals a year by myself with no assistance, no anything, that I knew at that point I had to form a team. And so I guess it was 2012 was my last year as an individual. And I did 81 deals, which was an equal split of buyers and sellers. But I had no personal time, no days off, no nothing. I mean, I literally, when you talk about grinding, 100%, I worked 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then that was fine. We were trying to do personal goals, like get ourselves out of debt. And so that was what I knew I could do. And I was good at it, obviously, selling real estate. So, but I think at that point, when we started the team, we knew that there really, for other people besides myself to be handling real estate in my name, there had to be systems in place and structure for these agents, not because it's no longer just me.
I can add to that, and I'll mention the debt thing too. When I came down here, I did it because I was at a startup and they owed me 9 months or 7 months of pay. We were like $70K in debt at the time. So she grinded. I took the W-2 job at NASA to get out of that. And we got out of it within about 2 years. So, but that was a big drive for us. But to answer your specific question about the run it like a business, maybe it's my engineering background too, but I kind of always thought that way. But it really became more obvious when two things happened. One, when you start to spend serious amount of money on leads and marketing, you've got to track it, because you've got to know where's the money coming in from, where's it going to, what's your ROI on that, so you can constantly make adjustments. And for a while with some of the online leads, the margin was so low that if you didn't stay on top of everything, you could easily find yourself wake up one day and you're like, oh crap, I'm bankrupt now. So it was really forced me to keep track of everything and put all the stuff in place. And then when you have people working for you, whether it's staff or agents, you start to become herding cats and things like that I love to say. And you have to have a business mindset there when you're dealing with that. Otherwise, it's just complete chaos and a loose confederation, agents, I should say. and you don't know what's going on. So that's kind of what started it. And then as the years progressed and the production increased, then we did more and more things and got into tangential businesses and changed brokerages later, which I'm sure you'll get to. It became even more critical to run it like a business and look at other things, and especially for Monica, for the reason that we switched in the first place, was a business decision. So you kind of have to do it. If you treat it as a hobby, you're probably never going to grow, and you'll be limited to the people you know. Yeah, and that's about it. And as long as that's good for you, great. But to really get it to a point where you can have the things you want in life and really kind of retire, because no one really retires from real estate. You have to run it like a business, and you've got to have those goals to reach. So,
well, when you think about, I mean, 81 deals for a single agent is almost just unheard of. I mean, most agents by themselves cannot get past 45 to 50 deals. So the fact that you were doing 81, I mean, you must have been really grinding, because I don't know if I've ever heard of an agent doing 81 deals by themselves without even an assistant. So I bet you were really getting after it. Now, at some point, and I think this kind of segues the story, is when I'm coaching people, one of the first things I look at is their business model. And I call that their vehicle. And some people are in bad vehicles that just can't get them to the next place, no matter how bad they want to go there, right? No matter how bad they want to get to that next level, the vehicle just can't do it. So at some point, you're doing 81 deals a year as a single agent. You wake up, you're part of a real estate company, whichever company that was, and a new opportunity came along for you. And you said, man, this is the right vehicle for us. And you made a decision to join EXP, right? And was that an easy decision? Was it a hard decision? Was it obvious to you? Why did you do it? I think this is a big, because, I coach a lot of EXP agents around the world, a lot of the top EXP people, but I also coach people in all the other brokerages. And so, obviously when people get an EXP, it's so clear to them and obvious to them that everybody should be in it. But for those people that are not in it, it's not always clear to them for whatever reason. So go back to that moment when you decided to join that brokerage and said, okay, that company, and say, man, this is where I'm going.
Well, and it's not even just about that moment. It's about the years leading up to that. Again, going back to the nonstop grinding, because at the peak, I think the most deals personally that I've ever done, not my team, is 139 in a year. Now, a lot of that at that point was listings, which are a lot easier to do, but it's still work. Work is work. Right. And so as the team grew, I knew with the margins, like Chris said, being so thin on a lot of the lead generation sources, I was floating the team with these 139 deals. They were doing another 150 to 300, depending on the year. Right. But I was floating them. And so if I wasn't working and grinding, then we were going to be in trouble. And we knew that. We recognized that. And so Chris and I, got to the point where we started talking. I was at a big box brokerage. I won't say which. I don't know if I can. So look
at the wall behind.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that it says there. It has a balloon. How's that?
Yeah.
So I knew that model would never allow me to do anything but grind and support my team. In other words, it's not a model where you can just step back easily as the team leader. That's very difficult for most team leaders at that brokerage and many of the big box brokerages to do. And so we had already started talking about two different brokerages that we were looking at, and one was EXP. And so at this time, and I always give the credit to Andrew Franklin, the Franklin team had just left the balloon and had gone to EXP. And so I was watching he was on some sort of Disruption Nation podcast, and I never met the Franklins. I didn't know them. So I messaged Andrew on Facebook, and I sent him a friend request, and I said, hey, you don't know me. I'm just curious to know why you left. We're thinking about leaving for EXP as well. Would you be interested in meeting for coffee? And so we finally, after a couple of weeks, got an appointment nailed down. We had lunch, and I asked Chris to go with me because he would have specific questions I wouldn't necessarily ask. He's, his engineer brain.
And tell me what I said.
And so he immediately said, I don't want to go to lunch with him. All they're going to do is try to push us to this brokerage. And I'm like, just come with me. It'll be fine. If you don't want to go, cool, we don't go. It's a joint decision. And then we go to lunch. 2 hours later, we're walking out. You have to put your notice in right now, Monica. You've got to resign from Remax right now. Oops, I just said it.
Right.
So it was in that moment at the end of 2018, that we made that decision, and I gave my 60-day notice and resigned from a 14-year career with them. And again, they were great to me, but that model for me, it was never going to get me to stepping back or even retirement.
Well, and I can add to that, the leads pay for themselves, but when you're running a business, like we talked about, you have staff, you have tools, you have all sorts of other expenses. And that's what she was kind of floating, but we were okay doing it for like 5 years because we were building up a referral network. But we both knew that she couldn't continue to do that forever. And we didn't know, we don't know what the future holds. So we just know we just couldn't rely on commissions only. We had to be able to leverage our real estate business into tangential businesses and have other forms of passive income, and in titles, another one, stuff like that. But we just didn't know at the time, before EXP came around, what that was going to be and what we could do there. And when EXP came around, and I didn't want to go, but I did. I mean, it's always good to have an open mind. We had known about it for a couple of years, but I'm like, I know what this is going to be. But the Franklins were top 10 in the balloon, and we were top 50. So I kind of felt like, okay, we were kind of up there, but they're ahead of us. If they did it, it's got to be a big deal.
In the US.
Yeah, in the US. And after that meeting, that's when I was like, we have to go now, because I recognized right away the opportunities that it presented for her. I mean, and for our agents too, because everything that she benefits from, pretty much anybody on the team and people that come with us can benefit from. But the stock awards that you get and the revenue share that you can get, we just felt like that those things would allow extra income to come in to offset what she was doing for the buyers. And it would allow us to also give more listings to the team. That was a key thing, because for many years, she would always take the listings, even if the buyer's agent was working with them or they were past clients. She had first right of refusal. And we still do that a little bit, but we've been, slowly giving more and more to the agents, because as the passive income streams grow, we can do that. And that was really the big goal. And then of course, Andrew also had a title company that he brought with him to the table. And, he jokingly says it wasn't tied to EXP, but there was kind of a wink in there. So we knew that doing that would just make it so much better. So that's what happened in 20, we joined in February 2019, but we made that decision in 2018 to do that and never look back.
So in essence, the business model obviously is very different, right? At some point in everyone's life, I say they look for residual income. Right? Everybody's going to at some point, especially if you're grinding. There's going to come a point when you grind that you go, okay, it's got to be a better way to do this,
right,
to get from A to B. Right. And that's what many of the EXP people have told me, is that, man, they were out there grinding and they just could never get to where they were trying to get to, no matter how hard they worked. And it's just an exhaustive cycle. Why do you think agents, and obviously EXP is growing at what, 10,000 agents a month or some ridiculous number?
I don't know that month, but we're at 77. I mean, it was 16 when we joined February 2019. It was 16,000, and we just went past 77,000 in, so a little over 3 years. So it's kind of crazy, but I'll say to your point, before we get a little further, is I believe, to me, EXP is for business-minded agents. Not everybody is in it for that, and not everybody does rev share, but they all benefit from it. But the way it was structured, it really appealed to the business-minded agent, which is what we were looking for, because they provide so many different ways to earn income outside of just commissions. And that's what really did it for us. Now, and Monica agreed, the collaboration that came out of it was a big surprise.
right.
Yeah.
We didn't really know what to expect there, but once our group grew, we have 208 now, I think. The collaboration happened because now everybody has a vested interest in everyone's success.
Yep.
And it makes it really special. And that is one of those things you kind of alluded to earlier when you talk about people who aren't there. The common saying is that, when you can't understand it when you're looking at it from the outside, but once you're in it, you can't explain it.
Right.
It's just really hard. And we try to explain to people, but they don't, for whatever reason, don't want to. And then when they finally do, they go, I've heard it. I should have joined 2 years ago. Or, I've heard that so many times. Because now they get it. Once they get in, they realize, it's like, oh, okay, this is what it's all about. So I won't belabor the point there, but it really is for business-minded agents who want to get off that hamster wheel and want to be able to retire someday. Because, that is a success. I think Frank Gray called it a succession plan or whatever. And when he talked at the conference, you can get out of it and you can still continue to collect that income, and it can still even grow while you're not even really practicing real estate anymore. And that is a true retirement plan that you cannot get anywhere else.
So the business model really solves a problem for people. In most plans, there's no retirement for most real estate agents. They're literally going to be working forever. There's really no residual income, real residual income in some of the models, right? Most of the models. And B, you have a chance to the collaboration that you found out. And you say collaboration, it's just the learning, the growth, the atmosphere, the people. That was an unexpected surprise that was strong for you.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I'll add that because you're owners in the company, which is another key point. Everybody has owners. You're willing to help because if they're successful, you are indirectly benefiting too because you own stock in the company. So our group helps each other. And when we were at the previous brokerage, it was a situation of if someone said, "Hey, I did really well," and you'd be like, "Oh, congratulations, good for you," or "Oh, I had a real bad month. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." And that's where it would kind of end. And I'm not trying to be, mean about it. It was just kind of the way it was.
Just didn't care.
You didn't have an interest in that. So unless they're a real dear friend of yours. So that's kind of how it was. But now it's very different because now you want to see people succeed. We have people in our group that if they get a listing and we didn't get it, I'm happy for them, because we all still win together. And it really is special. And people don't really get that. I think they just see it as, you're just telling me what I want to hear, or you're making stuff up to try to get me over there. But it is real. I mean, that collaboration is really there. And it's something that you can't get anywhere else. Right. I can tell you that.
Well, what's the next step for you two? I mean, is it to continue to grow the team? What would you, if you go out into the future and you come back to the present, what do you think the next moves are?
Well, I think we definitely will continue to grow the team, but I think the next step, and it's the one that I've been working towards since I joined EXP, is to start stepping back gradually, not all at once, and then ultimately step back completely. But that originally I used to tell people that was my 5-year plan, was to be retired. And now that I'm 3 years in, I'm like, not quite there yet. I'm not like personally ready for that. So it's one of those things. It's like, if I'm over, Chris loves to make fun of me. If I'm really, really busy, I'm very stressed out. If I'm not as busy, I'm very stressed out. So it's finding that happy middle ground. I just haven't found it yet. I did do only 89 deals last year. So I did step back a little bit from previous years, but again, I'm just trying to break into that because, in the early days, because I would work so many hours a day, 7 days a week, real estate had stripped me of all of my hobbies and anything that I loved. And so now it's getting back into that and finding that. And a lot of that is going to pour back into our collaboration group and back into my team and into networking events and charitable events and things of that nature. So it's just, again, easing myself into that.
Yeah.
Things that we've wanted to do, but we never really had the time.
Right.
We still want to grow the team because that's an important value proposition for folks anyway. And there is such a glutton of agents that we've taken, not only in our group where we've taken what used to be competitors and now they're our business partners, but in our team, we took it to another level. And we've taken a lot of agents who come to us from many different brokerages and really didn't learn much. And that's really, it's not like necessarily a knock at the brokerages. It's just you learn by doing.
Right.
And the opportunities really aren't there. And there's a lot of good agents out there who don't get that opportunity because it hasn't been presented to them. And we've been, through our various ways that we do our onboarding and our trial systems, we've been able to take some of those agents and educate them by giving them deals, and they become really good agents and they're making a good life for themselves and their families. And that's what we want to do, continue to do. We don't want to just go, okay, hey, we got enough residual, we're shutting the team down. But we will hopefully at some point, take a step back to some degree and let others kind of do a little more of it. But that's kind of where I want to go. And, we've talked about this before offline. There's so much disruption out there and uncertainty in the industry. You look back at just the last 3 years, that the changes that have come in, and I'm not just talking about the pandemic, which kind of really changed everything, but the iBuyers coming in, Zillow coming in, then going out, and then the others are still here, and Wall Street money being thrown everywhere. There's just a lot of uncertainty in the future. So for us, we wanted to make sure that, hey, if there's going to be less of us, or we want to be the last one standing, right? I don't know if there's going to be, what is it now, 2 million agents. I doubt that's in 5 years there's going to be 2 million agents anymore. Maybe it'll get cut by a third. I don't know, but I want us and our EXP group to be the one standing. So we're making sure that we can do everything we can to make that happen. And EXP does it too, but we add on to that with the team. So that's kind of how I see it, going. And then all the different tangential businesses that are spawning off of the team, we get the benefits from those as well. So that all comes together.
See, and even today, I learned I went to college for 9 years and never heard the word tangential. So is that what you said?
Yeah, tangential businesses. Yeah.
Hang around with him. You'll learn several words you've never heard, and then you'll hear them all the time.
Yeah.
9 years of college and 3 degrees, and that's the first time I've heard that word. So see, this is why you're people of interest.
Yeah. It's a geometry term, a tangent, but yeah, it's kind of at the side. It goes on the side.
I'm going to start using it. It's going to make me sound smarter.
It's a good, it describes the businesses like, when you do lending and title and insurance, all that stuff. Those are really kind of tangential businesses because they stand alone, but you can feed them from the real estate business. So they're little offshoots. So I call them tangential businesses.
Yeah.
So.
I call them intentionally congruent, but
that's another one I've heard. Yeah, that's what we were made note of that. A friend of ours said that to us the other day, a few weeks back. So yeah, same kind of concept,
Well, for all those people that are going to listen to this on Spotify or watch it on YouTube, the big point is when you step back and look at what's helped them be very successful, it appears to me a lot of drive, right? A lot of prey drive, a lot of just pure grit and toughness, but also adding a real knowledge set, a great business model, and you put all of that together, and it's kind of positioning you guys to this next level. So, hey, I want to thank you for being on Person of Interest. Y'all are a delightful couple. So you really are. And I admire your grit, and I respect the grit and toughness that you have, because that's very obvious. And it's probably missing in a lot of real estate folks. They just don't have that toughness and grit to go out and do that. And I don't know, those numbers, you by yourself, those numbers those are unheard of numbers to people I've coached as a single agent. So that's a big engine. Okay. And probably people who watch this are going to go, man, that's crazy.
That is example for the team.
That is crazy. Well, I think many times for all the agents out there, they're looking at joining your team. One of the benefits is I say, when you work with a pro and you observe a pro and you get to see a pro work, that's the first step to becoming a pro. It's to actually watch how a pro works, and a lot of people go, well, how do I do that? Well, get around it, be on the team, see it, experience it. Right. And almost all the people that come work with me say, man, I've never worked this hard. I've had 7 jobs before you, and I've never worked like this. I've never seen somebody work like this. And they're like, man, you have really taught me a work ethic that I didn't even have. And I'm assuming that when people work around you, they see a new work ethic. And that inspires them to go like, you know what, I need to go get it like her. And I think that's part of being on your team, is you're modeling the behavior of a successful professional, right? And there's a lot of agents that dabble, and then there's like pros. And the pros are pros, man. And they make the pro money, and they act like pros. And so I think for the people watching this, you just got to make up your mind if you're going to stay amateur, if you're going to go pro. And you got to ask, can the vehicle get me there? Can the vehicle I'm in get me there? You can't drive to Hawaii, folks. I love Hawaii, but you can't drive there. You can fly there, you can take a boat there. The vehicle has to get you there. So I want to thank you guys for being on Person of Interest. Congratulations on all your success. And I look forward to being with you some point in, is it Lake City? Right, you said?
League.
City.
Lake City.
City. Clear Lake, League City.
Clear Lake, outside of Houston. So I'm going to be coming there at some point, and we're going to be spending some time together, get some folks in a room. So if you're watching this, I am going to be going to outside of Houston to be with them to do an event at some point in the future. So just stay in there with us and watch us promote that. Come be in the room, and you can be up close and personal with this machine here, Monica Foster, and get to see exactly how it works. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you very much for a great interview.